Earlier we got a little preview of the Atlas Knife and Tool Forge. This is the forge on their website that they list as being best for knife makers. So today I thought we would use this little forge and make a knife in it. Atlas Knife and Tool did send the forge out for free, but I'm not charging them anything to make the video, and they did not provide any specific talking points, nor do they get to review the video before it posts. So my thoughts and opinions on the forge will be my own. I could say this is an ideal forge for knife making. In the previous video, we made a little fire rake using this forge, so there is some general blacksmithing that can be done, but we're going to look at it more as a knife making forge. And to do that, we're going to use something else they sent us, which are some railroad spikes. And these aren't just any railroad spikes, these are 1078 railroad spikes. Railroad spike knives and axes are one of those things that blacksmiths either love to make or they love to argue about, because railroad spikes are not really all that nice a steel. But these spikes from Atlas Knife and Tool are 1078 steel. That's a high carbon steel. They're having these made for them. It says the head is stamped AK&T, Atlas Knife and Tool. So this is something unique to their product line, and you should be able to get a really nice knife made out of one of these if you like railroad spike knives. The previous spikes that I've had that are marked HC or higher carbon spikes were listed by the manufacturer as 30 points of carbon, so that's at the low range of a medium carbon steel. They'd harden a little bit, but these 1078 spikes you get plenty hard to make a good knife or a good axe. So today we're going to use one of these, and we're going to make a simple railroad spike knife. Now, Atlas Knife and Tool also sent us an anvil. We looked at that almost a month ago now, and I'm going to use that anvil to do this, so we're using the entire package that they sent. And these tools would probably make a good beginner setup if you're just getting started. They also sent a cone hardy with a 1-inch hardy shank that fits that anvil, and a cutoff hardy with a 1-inch hardy shank, so we have that to use in the anvil if we need it. These are things that they have available on their website along with the railroad spikes. And a couple other little goodies. A little mini anvil. This is more of a paperweight anvil or something to set on a shelf just to look at. I don't think it's meant to use, although the face is kind of polished. And they sent a mini swedge block. This is the Derek Melton version 2 swedge block. There's a version 1 and a version 2. They have both of those at Atlas Knife and Tool. It's got kind of a round rivet header, sort of a swedge here, a spoon swedge, one that might be good for ladles, and then a smaller size rivet, a couple of pass-throughs, some 60-degree V swedges, some round swedges, and some tapered swedges, which a lot of times I would really like to have those tapers. We won't need this today for this project, but even though this is a small block, it's going to be a really useful tool in the shop. And the last thing they sent for us to try out here at Black Bear Forge is a little tool stand. This has a place for hammers, hardy tools, and tongs. The ideal to sit next to the anvil while you're working so you got your tools right at hand, but it isn't so tall that it's going to be in your way. And if you're having trouble staying organized, this might really help you out. The little Atlas forge has a 2.5-inch diameter front opening, about an 11-inch deep chamber, and there's a small opening in the back about 2 inches wide but not full height. So you can get some things to pass all the way through. But it would be big enough for a fairly substantial knife to fit in there. Room to turn it over if you need to heat differently. The tip on a knife this size would go all the way out the back of the forge, so you don't have to worry about overheating the tip too much. And there's a little stock rest here and an adjustable stock rest out here to keep things from flipping out of the forge. This is the burner. Incoming gas line. They provide a braided stainless hose, so nice durable gas line, way better than a lot of the cheap forges out there. Little jet on the side of it here with a choke. This can be adjusted to get the flame to burn right, but you definitely need to work it with the choke open, never light the forge with it closed. That just goes in the side here, and there's a little set screw in the back to keep it in place. And they include a little driver bit to hold that in with. Regulator, gauge, and tank fitting are all included. There's no shutoff on the burner, so you have to light this as you turn the tank on. This forge seems to be heating up very quickly. It's only been going for about 10 minutes, and I think I'm ready to start working. I find it easier on these to put a twist in the handle before doing the blade, and that way I've got something that's easier to secure in the vise while I do the twisting. It's really just a matter of personal preference. The twisting wrench, by the way, came from Ken's Custom Iron. I'm lucky enough to have a guillotine tool we made in an earlier series of videos, and I'll use this to fuller in at the transition from the handle to the blade. The fullering leaves just a little bit of a corner there that can be forged back in and cause a cold shut, which eventually is a place your knife blade will break. So it's a good idea to knock those corners down before you start shaping the blade. Using the peen of the hammer, I can spread the blade sideways and get a deeper or taller blade instead of a long, skinny blade. Really just depends on what you're after. I managed to get a little fold in that tip as I'm drawing it out. That will create a cold shut and a problem in the future, so I'm going to have to make sure I grind back far enough to eliminate that. Using a grinder to deal with some of these issues is perfectly okay. Now's the time to do any final straightening. Then I'm going to bring it back up to heat one more time, shut the forge off, and let this cool with the forge so it cools slowly and it'll be easier to file or grind. Atlas does recommend removing the burner from the forge when you're done so that the burner doesn't overheat. Now I thought I was going to leave the video there, but that went so quickly and so smoothly that I think I'm going to go ahead and plan to get back to it tomorrow, do the grinding and the heat treating of this. It's not going to be a real difficult grind. I'm going to leave it a little bit rough and rustic. I don't want to put mirror polish, just enough to make a good usable knife out of it. Like I say, the twisting wrench came from Ken's Custom Iron, and so did the pair of rail spike tongs that I'm using. So if you're looking for those, they're available there. The railroad spikes, these 1078 spikes, high carbon spikes, came from Atlas Knife and Tool, just like the forge and the anvil. So I'm going to go do some other work this afternoon, get back to this in the morning. For you, it's going to be just a second. Let's see what we ended up with here. Not bad. Handle's not a bad length. It might be a little bit short, but I didn't want the blade to be too short by making the handle bigger. I like the blade shape. Now, unfortunately, I must have twisted this handle just a little bit too cold. I should have gone back and taken another heat. And I've got some little tiny cracking right along that corner. And that's not real uncommon to have happen when you're doing tool steels like this, which aren't usually twisted up this tight. Would have been better if I had ground those edges off just a little bit and then made sure it was at the highest heat I could get it to before doing the twist. That isn't going to present a problem down in the blade because you're not likely to break it at the handle. You're going to break it down here at the transition, and that looks real good. But it will be uncomfortable to hold. Of course, the sharp edges on a twist might be uncomfortable anyways. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and grind that down and get rid of the sharp edge. It's still going to leave the valley of the twist in there. I think it's going to make an interesting effect, even if it wasn't exactly what I was going for when I started out. I took this down to a 220 grit finish. Looks like my touch mark did not stamp evenly. So I'm going to go ahead and heat it back up and try and fix that. I may end up with a double strike or may warp the blade, but we're going to see if this will work. And then we'll be ready to get on to the heat treating process. I'm going to go back to the little Atlas forge, and I'm going to turn it down as low as I can and still keep a smooth flame in the forge. If it starts to sputter, I'll have to turn it up a little bit. I will normalize the blade after stamping it and before doing the heat treat. Then we'll bring it up to a cherry red heat and quench in Park 50 oil. It files, but it files with difficulty, so it's pretty good and hard. Put that in the toaster oven to temper at 400 degrees. I'll leave it in there for an hour just because it's got a timer that sets for an hour. I'm going to go back to the 220 belt for the initial sharpening. I'm not trying to polish this blade up, I just want to get a sharp edge. I'm also going to run this grinder in reverse to do that, and that way I don't have to worry about snagging the belt on the edge of the knife. Once you start to feel a burr forming on the edge, it's time to go to a finer belt. I'm going to go to 400. That's the finest belt I have for this little grinder. So after that, we'll go to stones. So that's a fairly basic little railroad spike knife out of much higher quality steel. Now I did have to go back and redo the heat treat. It wasn't quite as hard as I think it could have been. Maybe I didn't have it hot enough, or maybe oil wasn't the right choice for it. So I went back, normalized it, brought it back up to temperature, quenched it in water. It was much harder initially, and then I only tempered it at 350 for an hour, and it seems to be much better doing that. Now don't take my heat treat process as being the gospel truth for this steel. The best thing to do is look it up, which I didn't bother to do with this, and then follow the manufacturer's directions and then adjust from there based on what you find out. Try different things. Just start with milder quenches like oil before going to water or going to brine, just in case the water or the brine is too harsh. But it seems to have done a really good job with this knife. Probably the best quality railroad spike knife I've ever made. Now, what are my thoughts on the little Atlas knife and tool forge? This is a great little forge for doing small to medium-sized knives. Like I mentioned earlier, I think this would be fine if you're doing bottle openers, steak flippers, toasting forks, small hooks, all of those skill building projects that are a great place to start if you're just getting into blacksmithing, even before you start making knives. I like the fact that this is a hard liner that does not have to have refractory in it, but it did come with some refractory, and I will put that in. It should improve the efficiency and the longevity of the forge to go ahead and do that. And this is one that I'm going to keep around. It won't be my everyday forge because I generally do bigger work and sometimes production work where I need 2 or 3 bars in the forge at one time. And this is a little bit small for that. But if you're just getting started, you're primarily making knives and smaller projects, this is certainly a forge that's worth looking into, and I'll put a link down in the video description so you can find Atlas Knife and Tool. The little 66-pound anvil worked great. Tool stand was nice to have. So thanks again, Atlas Knife and Tool, for supporting the videos here at Black Bear Forge. For everybody else, I hope you have time in your day to get out to your shop, make something, but stay safe, wear your safety glasses. We'll see you for the next video.